Good morning and welcome to Rose Red Homestead. Today we're going to do kind of a special video, and it is aimed at all of us who have never canned meat before or who are reluctant to can meat and would like to really just bite the bullet and go for it. In the situation that we are in right now within our society, I think it is critically important for us to be sure that we have adequate protein stored in our food storage. And one of the best sources of protein, of course, is meat. Now, the USDA has provided us with very easy instructions for canning. Well, let me just tell you what we're going to do today. You see here that I have 3 piles of protein. This is beef chunks, this is pork chunks, and these are chicken chunks. We have sort of cleaned out our refrigerator of roasts, beef roasts and pork roasts that have been in there for quite a while, and I was blown away by the prices. The 2 beef roasts that went here were $3.99 a pound, and that was just a year and 3 months ago. And so prices have just practically doubled on beef. And the pork is the same, and then we always keep chicken. This is bulk chicken from Costco. So prices are probably not going to go down for a while, and if we don't have enough meat right now or protein stored, we should just bite the bullet and do it anyway. Canning meat is very, very easy. It's one of the easiest things that we can do because there's just the one ingredient, unless you want to count salt. If you want to can with salt, I don't can with salt, but many people do. And the USDA says that that's just fine. But let me show you what I have right here are the 2 printouts from the USDA. This is the National Center for Home Food Preservation. And one is for canning meat strips, cubes, or chunks. And that's what we're doing with the beef and the pork, because here are the meats that you can follow with this recipe. Bear, we're just fresh out of bear in our freezer. Beef.
Oh, that's too bad.
Jim says, oh, it's too bad. So it's bear, beef, lamb, pork, veal, and venison. And so some of the game meats are also included here. And there are special instructions for how to calm down that wild taste just a little bit. But the instructions are so easy, and we can do it 2 ways. Meanwhile, this one is how to can chicken or rabbit, which is a little bit different from the beef and the bear. But it is still very, very easy. They're just almost identical. And we have 2 options. We can either do hot pack or raw pack. It's not hot and cold, it's hot or raw. And I have traditionally done raw pack. I think I have maybe 1 video on hot pack. In our class on pressure canning, I do talk about both in a little bit more detail. But I have, because the hot pack is the more recommended of the 2 ways, although both ways are very safe and you can do whichever one you wish, I'm going to do hot pack today. The reason I'm choosing to do hot pack is because when you do raw pack, all you do is just put the meat in the jar, no liquid, because in the processing, the meat the liquid is pulled out of the meat and provides the liquid needed for the canning. I'm not particularly fond of that anymore. The chicken that I have done over the past 5 years, done that way, in particular, the liquid doesn't ever cover the meat altogether, and the meat that sticks out above the liquid turns kind of a funny color. But with hot pack, you can pre-cook the meat, not all the way through. You cook it to the rare stage, and then you put it in the jars, and then you add liquid to that. And that's what I'm going to do today because that's what I prefer. I prefer having enough liquid to cover the meat so the meat stays a nice, good color, an appetizing color. Now, this video is especially intended for newbies or for those of you that have a fear of canning meat. But let me just reassure you that meat is probably, if I were teaching a canning class right here in my kitchen, I would start with hamburger because meat is just about the easiest thing you can possibly can. And if you follow the USDA guidelines, all you need is a pressure canner. This is the one we're going to be using today. And you do not need a fancy top-of-the-line canner. I have never owned one of those. This is a Presto, which is right in the middle in terms of cost. And I have been using Presto canners for 50 or 60 years. I think this is my third one. And then the other thing that you will need is canning jars. Now, we always can chunked meat in pints. I have canned some chicken in quarts when I was testing canners before, but that is just almost too much chicken for Jim and me in most of our recipes. So from now on, I'm only canning chunked meat in pints. And I think today we will probably get, I'm thinking we may have as many as 16 pints, which would fill this canner, and I hope so. Adding 16 pints of pure protein to our food storage would be a great goal for us to have. So the easiest way is raw pack, drop in the chunks, seal it up, process it, and it creates its own liquid. The second easiest way is to do what we are going to do today, and I'm going to show you that. So the hardest part of this whole thing was chunking the pork roast. The chicken was easy. The beef roasts that I used were, it was a boneless roast, beautiful, mostly all meat, so that was easy. But this darn pork shoulder required help from Jim because it was so full of veins of fat all through it, and we had to cut away a lot of fat. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pre-cook the meats. So I've got a baking sheet right here, and I did chunk these yesterday, except the pork we did this morning. And I'm just going to spread this out, and I'm going to put it in a 350 oven, and the chunks are about this size, so they're about an inch or an inch and a half square. Well, square-ish. I'm going to put these in a 350 oven and just let them roast for however long it takes to get them rare. I'm guessing maybe 20, 25 minutes. And then over here, I'm going to rinse my hands. And by the way, I sprayed my whole countertop with Stearamine this morning so that it is sanitized. Stearamine, I'll put the link to Stearamine below this video. It is a sanitizer that is used in the restaurant business, and when you use that, you don't need to use Lysol, for one thing, and it costs about 4 cents a quart. It comes in little tablets, and a quart takes a half a tablet. So it's about 4 cents a quart. So here's our pork shoulder. I'm going to spread these chunks out, and if you can see up close, these have quite a bit more fat to them. But we got off as much fat as we possibly could. Those roasts have been sitting in our freezer for over a year, as I mentioned earlier, and we need the freezer space. And so it was time to do something with these. And so I just thought, boy, putting these in pints on our food storage shelf would be the best option. So these are going to go in the oven, 350 for 20 or 25 minutes. And then with our chicken, now you will notice that I'm not doing as much chicken, and that's because we already have a lot of chicken. This will probably be 3 pints, maybe 4. With the chicken, I'm not going to roast it. Rather, I'm just going to put it in this pan, and I'm going to boil it until it gets, let's see, with our chicken, let me just check the recipe. Boil, steam, or bake meat until about 2/3 done. So it will still be kind of rare. If it's only 2/3 done, it will still be rare. So that's going in this pan. So here's what that looks like. And we'll get this on to boil. Probably will take about 20 minutes to get that done as well. So we will be back when the meats are ready to put into the jars. I will also have hot boiling broth ready to cover the meat in the jars. So we'll be back at that point. We are back, and our meat is just about done, but I wanted to show you the canner for those of you that are new to pressure canning and maybe a little bit reluctant. Pressure canning these days is completely safe, provided you follow tested recipes, and the USDA, their National Center for Home Food Preservation is the best resource for getting tested recipes, especially if you are a beginner. We always follow those tested recipes here on this channel. Now, this is a 23-quart canner, meaning that I could pour 23 quarts of water in here. That's the volume. In terms of what it can, I like the extra tall one because it gives me the option of having 2 layers of pints if I want to. In the bottom, there is a rack just like this, and I have put about 3 inches of water. In just a moment, Jim is going to take this outside to our canning center and get it started so the water is simmering when we put those jars in just a few minutes. So this is a 23 quart. It will hold 7 quarts or about 16 pints. And we're hoping to get a full 16 pints today. So the lid of a canner has this inner rubber ring that keeps it airtight. And you want to be sure that it is clean always underneath this gasket right here. It also has a vent, which is right here. You want to hold that up to the light. Look through it to be sure that it is clear. If it is not clear, stick a paper clip down there to clear it out. This is the airlock. When the steam gets really going, the airlock is going to lock right here, push up so that no more air can escape out of this orifice right here. This is a dial gauge. The other type of canner is a weighted gauge. It doesn't have this temperature right here. It will just have a weight over a vent like this. Now, I also have this weight that goes here that will jiggle, but what I look for is the measurement right here. At our elevation, it is 13 pounds per square inch of pressure inside this canner. And so we keep that dial between 13 and 15. If it goes below 13, oops, we have to start the timing of the process all over again. You may be wondering why we're going to be doing 3 different types of meat. Shouldn't you just do 1 type of meat per batch? Well, that is a common idea, but it is not necessarily the way that it has to be done. The recipes are given for preparing the jars. Once the jars are in the canner, they are completely confined units. They're not going to cross-contaminate each other. So long as the processing time is the same, which in this case, all of these pints, both the chicken and the beef and pork, all call for 75 minutes for the length of the processing time. And so since the timing is all the same, we can mix and match whatever we want to. So that's exactly what we are going to do. Now I'm getting ready to take the first ones out of the oven and get them going. And I have the broth already, or almost already. I'm going to start with the beef. So I'm going to put a jar right here. And then here's a funnel. I'm going to try to keep the top rim clean, but nevertheless, we will wipe it before we put the lid and ring on. So I'm just going to dip in here, and we're putting meat in. There's a lot of juice. I'm going to rescue that juice. It's going to go as part of the broth. That will help fill this. Now, for the beef, we need to leave 1 inch of headspace. All right, so we got 7 pints, which is about right. Each of those roasts that I chunked were just over 3 pounds, and I usually get about 1 pound of meat per pint. This is cooled enough, so I'm just now going to put all of these drippings through a strainer into this pitcher. So we've captured those drippings. And now I'm going to fill up to the 1 quart level with boiling water. And I'm going to add 1/4 cup of beef bouillon granules to this boiling water. Just a little bit more. So here is the boiling water broth that we're going to pour over the meat. So I'm going to bring these close, and we're going to do the pouring. And remember, we are leaving 1 inch of head space. Next, I am going to take my little blade here. It's plastic, and make sure that there are no air bubbles down in the meat that would interfere with the canning, and make sure that the broth is at the 1 inch level. So we have that head space in case there's any expansion. All the rest are just fine. Now I have a paper towel that is dampened with vinegar. Vinegar cuts any oil that might be on the top rim. These are very hot. Okay, now placing lids. And rings were going to be finger tight, which means I'm going to take my fingers, not my wrist, not my elbow, but just my fingers, and tighten them. I'm going to place them in my tray here, and we're going to take them out and put them in the canner to keep them warm while we finish jarring up the rest. Last of the beef is going in, and we will have room for 1 more right here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're going to put a chicken right there to be on the same level of the beef. So let's go back in and do chicken. Putting the strainer inside the funnel, and we're going to fill up to 1 1/4 inches of head space. Okay, now we're going to leave those there, and we're going to bring out the pork, and let's see how that looks. All right, we are pouring the pork drippings into the pitcher. We are going to fill with boiling water. Finger tight. Okay, let's head outside and load these into the canner. And our single regular mouth right there. It's a little taller than the rest, but it will work just fine. Okay, now you can hear that it is boiling, but it hasn't come up to pressure yet. It was just keeping the other ones warm. So let's put the lid on. So on it goes. So now you can see that the dial gauge is at 0. We need to get it up to 13. The airlock will pop up. And the first thing that we do is we're not going to put this over the vent right yet. And we're going to let it vent steam for 10 minutes. Now what that does is it replaces all of the air in the canner with steam. And it is the steam touching the jars that gets and it's under pressure, which gets the jars up to a minimum of 240 degrees or 121 Celsius in order to kill any botulism spores, if any are present. Doesn't matter if they are or not, we pretend like there are because we always do it up to that killing temperature. So when we get to the point where the steam is venting out, vent right there, then we'll bring you out and show you. It needs to be a full-bodied stream of steam. So we'll be back. So it has a full head of steam, so I'm going to set the timer. Hey Siri, set timer for 10 minutes.
10 minutes, starting now.
So we've got that timer going, and once that 10 minutes is up, then we move this weight over the top of that vent to hold the steam in so it can start building up pressure. Then when it gets up to pressure, between 13 and 15, we will start our timer for the 75-minute processing time. So we will see you along the way. The timer just went off for 10 minutes, so we're going to now put the weight over the steam vent. It's going to hold the steam in. Right now, the dial is at 0 psi, pounds per square inch. But look at our airlock. Our airlock is almost completely locked. It shouldn't be boiling like that. It will pop up in just a few minutes even stronger. So the dial is going to rise now until it gets up to 13. And once it gets to 13, then we will start the 75 minutes, not until. And so then we will let it go for the full 75 minutes, then turn the heat off and walk away. Let it cool down on its own. So we will see you along the way. Here we are, finished with our processing. And as you can see, the needle is right at 14 pounds per square inch. The weight is rocking gently. That's about as much rock as we want. Otherwise, there's too much pressure escaping. The airlock vent is nice and tightly closed. And now what we're going to do is turn it to off. And there it went. And we're going to start, the needle will start moving back to 0. Once the needle gets back to 0 and the airlock is down, we'll check the weight, pull it off to see if there's any pressure escaping. And when we are certain that there's no more pressure inside the pot, then we will open the lid and start removing the pints of meat. So that's probably going to take about 45 minutes. So we'll be back when that occurs, and we will take the jars out and move them into the kitchen. We are at the end of our processing. The airlock is dropped down now flat with the lid, and our dial is at 0. So let's check our weight and see if there's any more steam escaping. Nope, so we're good. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open the lid. And I'm going to open it away from me. And we will start taking these out. I'm just going to do one layer at a time. So we will take these into the house, and then we'll come get the second layer, and we'll meet you in there to look over everything. So we did have just a little bit of siphoning. You can see that there is some oil floating on the top of the water, but I did not notice any of the jars that showed that much water loss at all. So it was just a little bit of siphoning, and that's very normal. Don't be concerned if you get a little bit of siphoning. It's perfectly fine. Here we have our 16 pints of meat. The lighter colored pork is here, and the darker colored beef is here. We have one pork there and one beef here with 2 chickens in the middle right there. And so this is 16 pints. Now, what does that mean in terms of our food storage? Well, these pints are packaged so that there's about a pound of meat per jar in pints, which is the minimum amount for many recipes using this type of meat, the beef chunks or the pork chunks. Now, we use our beef chunks for many things. A lot of our Mexican food dishes require flaked beef chunks and including our taco soup, enchiladas, tacos, all of those things we do. Now, we don't generally use the meat. You can hear some of these are popping, which is good. We don't generally use the meat straight out of the jar. Generally, we season it with some other things as well, especially the hamburger, which we do. But they're just perfect for recipe size. Now, what that means is we'll have 16 meals with just here, plus, generally speaking, whenever we mix up a recipe with a pint of meat like this, it will serve us for 2 days, which makes 32 meals. So the return on our investment of meat is pretty good, and the satisfaction that we feel in terms of being ready for difficult times ahead there's no dollar amount that can be put on that. It's such a good feeling to feel like we can take care of our own needs if necessary. So we will leave these here for several hours, let them cool completely, maybe even overnight, and hope that you can see how really easy it is. The whole process takes about 3 hours, but not 3 hours of my time. Most of that 3 hours is waiting for the canner to do its thing. So I cubed the meat yesterday, except for the pork, which Jim helped me with this morning. So that didn't take much time at all. And so really it was just getting them ready to put in the oven or in the saucepan for the chicken, and then waiting for that to come to temperature and cook the meat to the rare stage, and then just filling the jars, adding the broth, and getting it out in the canner. So it's very, very easy. And the canning process is simple as can be if you have the right equipment. So I hope that this will help motivate some of you who have not yet tried to do pressure canning of meat. Meats must always be pressure canned. And I will be putting the links to the 2 USDA recipes for canning the beef and the pork and the chicken. The beef and the pork are one recipe, and then the chicken is a separate recipe. So they're linked below right now in the description of the video. So thank you so much for being with us, and happy canning. And let's all work on getting enough protein in our food storage that we can feel really comfortable. So we will see you very soon for more videos.